So welcome to the I Am the Way tape group, the I Am the Way Practitioner tape group, as I've called it. It's like there's a lot of opportunity for healing and for demonstration, for expressing that what you are with what you have learned, or what you have shown within you as healing, like what you have come to realize. And so this meeting is to support that, is to take a look at that, to allow that to become more firm in its demonstration, because then it's confirmed in you, and that's where this is all about. It's like coming into the certainty of what you are, letting that be, and letting that literally take over. Opening your mouth and not knowing what you're going to say, trusting that what is necessary to be given is going to be given exactly right. So this is what you learn. But if you don't open up your mouth, you could say it doesn't happen. If I would just be sitting still here, it's different. Now you can completely trust what comes to you, and in that sense, this meeting that we have today carries the title of it's like becoming servants of God. And so the interesting part to me is, and I just discovered this it's like a couple of days ago or something, is in fact this is the series of the mystical eye. This is the series of London work. This is the I Am the Way. But this is also Man Was Not Born to Cry. Like, we use the videos in those series, and there's a specific reason for that, because it is not a repetition so much. It is more like you can use this new teaching of Joel, in fact, as a basis for the new infinite way that Joel was teaching. Literally, like, some things you will not find back in books before 1963, but you will recognize them in books, say, after 62 or 63, when the new teaching has taken shape. And words like impersonalization, you won't see that in a parenthesis in eternity, for instance, or in the art of spiritual healing. Like, this didn't come to him at that point yet. So, but in these 63 talks, it is used and it is brought in as really important. Like, as, okay, this is one of the essences of the denial of human beings, thinking that there's a difference between, like, there's a necessity for a personalized evil or a personalized good. While Joe brings in, like, no, it's impersonalized. No, there's not a God and you. No, this, like, that would be also like shaping a distance between source and you, and there isn't. So it would put a veil over it, as he literally says in one of the books or in the talk. It is like you put a veil over the whole idea if you do so. If you think there's a God apart from you, or a savior that's going to save you, or who knows, like all these expressions that we used, before you know it, you don't even realize it, that you're separating yourself off. Now, this meeting that we have today is specifically designed to undo that, or to make you aware, to remember that. And the book I'm using today is it's like Government of Eden. And in chapter 9, you will see there's a lot that is brightly formulated or given in the application of the idea of impersonalization, because impersonalization is, of course, like an abstract term quite a bit, and nothingization is also like, how do you do that? What is that? So these things will certainly come back in what we look at today, using just a couple of expressions from the Government of Eden. And so that was given to me to do it like that otherwise I would not have thought of the book, because I use it. But yeah, here you see specifically, like, this is a relatively new book, and what he's in the year that he shared about this was around 62, 63. So that does make a lot of sense. So he has used the ideas already a lot, and now bringing it into his teaching continuously in a way that is so practical. And that's why I love to share it with you, because this is the practitioner training, to make it literally, bring it in demonstration, to literally show, express and live that what is being shared. This all to come to the realization of what already is within you and what is already given. But if you still hold on to things and cover up your Christhood, then you will not experience that or see that. That's why that's so important. Now, an essential part in this meeting that we have is also the meditation, which is something that we're going to start in a moment. This comes from the same book, like A Government of Eden, and it's absolutely lovely, but it's also confrontational to a certain degree, and you will see why, because it has to do with, in fact, the emptying of your human being, of being a human being. And that is a process that is taking place within you, in this way you signed up for. The thing you signed up for was this program, you could say, of undoing, of recognizing the truth of who you are. And the program is like God's plan to set you free from limitation, to return back home, to be able to enter consciously into heaven, as a place where you truly are. So that comes with the undoing of you in the definitions of yourself. So that's so great. And so that's what we practice first with the meditation. This meditation takes about 3 minutes. It's like that. These are the words and the music. Then there will be quiet for 5 minutes, and I'll repeat that once or twice. I don't know exactly. We'll see. And take it from there. Let me be empty. Let the Lord enter consciously, always with the realization that if there be any faults in me, any hidden faults in me, that I am purified, that I'm willing to surrender, and then watch the miracle in transformed lives, because you are not a human being who knows some truths. Now you are emptied of being a human being, and you have become divine by virtue of the Spirit of God, which dwelleth in you. Consciousness lives itself. You do not live it.
Vidé de toute humanité. Laissez-moi être vide. Laissez le Seigneur entrer consciemment. Toujours avec la conscience que s'il y a des défauts en moi, des défauts cachés en moi, je suis purifié. Je suis prêt à me rendre. Et alors, regardez le miracle dans les vies transformées. Parce que vous n'êtes pas un être humain qui connaît quelques vérités. Maintenant, vous êtes vidé de toute humanité. Et vous êtes devenu divin en vertu de l'Esprit de Dieu qui habite en vous. La conscience se vit elle-même. Ce n'est pas vous qui la vivez.
Right. Thank you so much for joining in the meditation. So I want to so-called head over to the sheets that I prepared just to get started with the idea of impersonalization and nothingization. Impersonalized, nothingized. Spiritual consciousness, Jill says, is your consciousness when you have no evil to combat, when your evil has been impersonalized and nothingized. That is Christ consciousness. It is not some other consciousness that is going to come to you. It is your present consciousness when your consciousness is divested on personalizing good and evil or empowering evil. Your consciousness, this very consciousness which is you, is Christ consciousness in proportion as you are impersonalizing and nothingizing. So let me repeat those three one more time. It is not some other consciousness that is going to come to you. It is your present consciousness when your consciousness is divested of personalizing good and evil or empowering evil, when it doesn't do that any longer. Your consciousness, this very consciousness which is you, is Christ consciousness in proportion as you are impersonalizing and nothingizing. Now, that might not be directly clear what Jill means with that, because this is the whole process, right? This is the process that's taking place. Just to bring it back to earth, you could say, it's like, in fact, you're as a human being, let me speak from that point of view. It's like, as a human being, you're literally personalizing error and personalizing good. Right? You have a good and a bad. This president doesn't do good, that president does good, and vice versa, and who knows what. We all have our ideas about that. But personal it is, right? You can pick out the guy or the woman or the who knows what, who does something, and you think that that's a legitimate way of looking at everything. So you base your perception, you base your judgment on what you see. And that's of course the problem, as you know now, like as an mature practitioner, you know that that's not the way to do it. And you find yourself slipping, and suddenly you have your judgment ready about what you see. And this is what we said in the meditation too, is like, just have to realize that you're purified. That doesn't mean that you now have to judge yourself because you had a judgment. No, you let go of it. You allow that purification process to take place within you, in the sense of suddenly you come back to your peace. Now this this would represent the Christ consciousness. Simplistically stated, of course. Like it is happening in your consciousness. You have to allow it in your consciousness. But if your consciousness is full of figuring out what is right and what is wrong, and what is good and what is evil, and who's right and who's wrong, and all this, then there's no space literally for anything else. There's no space for the Spirit of God to enter into your consciousness or to manifest itself in your consciousness, because a part of you is in perfect communication with God. And that's not always the part that you're identifying with. Speaking from my own experience, yes, very much so. So that's good. So it's like self-forgiveness is in fact the key, that you forgive yourself constantly, because perception means already you're judging, otherwise you wouldn't be seeing it. If you didn't value any of it, you wouldn't see it. That is as simple as that is. So apparently you already have an investment, because you take your perception as something that is valuable, otherwise it wouldn't be there. And how does that exactly work then? Well, if you come to realize more and more and more that like the Christ is within you, that is occurring in your consciousness, that the world cannot tell you who you are, that nothing outside of you can tell you who you are. When you come into that still place within yourself, you shift into a different experience altogether. Like when that, it is your secret, as Joel says many times, sacred and secret. Like you don't have to talk about it, but you can let it occur, and you can let it occur anywhere. And what do I mean by occur? In fact, taking my investment out of my perception of what I see, taking it out of it, and bringing it back, in fact, bringing all the opposites together within me, as it cannot tell me who I am. I don't want to fall into the trap of judging something outside myself, because what am I doing? I'm separating myself off. I say, that is not good and I'm good. So there appear to be two, which is impossible. So this, Jill says, in proportion that you do this, you are experiencing the Christ. And I'm saying it like this. If you do that, if you completely take back your investment in this world, you will immediately have a full-blown Christ experience. Like there's nothing in between. You either experience the Christ or you're not experiencing the Christ, but you're judging. You're in the world, investing in the world. So that is a difficulty in reading that, what Joel exactly means by that, because there's no in between. There is no deal to be made. You either are invested in the world or you're not. In that moment of that you experience, you're either invested or not. If you're not invested, you have an experience of your individual freedom, in your individual communion with God. That is a given. That is given to you. It's not something that you do, but it's given to you. God knows his way to you. Like there's not, if it's all happening within you, there it is. So therefore, there is no new consciousness to gain. There is no other consciousness to go out after. It is a purification of the consciousness which we now have, and which is in its purified state, Christ consciousness. We have this principle of impersonalizing evil, and this means denying the evil a person in whom or on whom or through whom to operate. In other words, look upon every evil as if it were being offered by a tempter, as if you were seeing Satan stand before the Master and you having the ability to say, "Get thee behind me, I am having none of it." This is what I'm calling then taking out your investment in what you see. Because looking upon evil, where do you do that with? Where are you looking with? And that is with your eyes. Where are you looking with eyes that cannot see or ears that cannot hear? So what are you going to do with this? So I like the way that Joel says it. Like he uses, in fact, the words of the Master, of Jesus Christ, like as if Satan is tempting you to say, like, well, if you want that, I can arrange that for you. Just, in fact, let me be your God. Like either your eyes are and your investment in this world are your God. Like you cannot not, in fact, obey the God that you believe in. You believe this world is real. Well, it's in fact you make an idol out of it. You make it special. You personalize it with your investment in it, or you take that out and impersonalize it. And seeing that, get thee behind me, Satan. Like I don't believe any of it. I'm not buying it. I'm not literally not buying it. I'm not investing in it. This cannot be real because I'm actually perceiving it. So, and I don't trust my eyes. So that's bluntly put, so to speak, how Joel is expressing this. And now the mechanism of this in practice as a maturing practitioner is then this. It's like you invest continuously, but what do you do then? You invest in your perception continuously. You believe what you see. You're misled. You're doing all these things. But then what do you do? Because you feel immediately a response of your system too at the same time. What do you do? Well, you see that you can admit to what you just did. Admitting to yourself, like, oh, here we go again. I really thought I was free of that, but still I'm looking for it, or I'm confirming it, or I believe in sickness, or I believe in symptoms, or I believe in disaster, or I believe in injustice, or I believe in lack, or I believe in limitation. Every time I do that, now there is a bell that is ringing. This bell tells me, wait a minute, are you sure you want to invest in this? And then, of course, your answer is going to be like, no, get thee behind me, Satan. I'm not buying it. I'm not investing in it. I can do without. I don't need it. Like, I don't need any substitute for the totality of who I am. If I'm Christ consciousness, and I'm in full communication with an omnipresent, omnipotent God that literally gives me everything all the time, what can possibly be my need? My perceived needs, I'm not talking about that. My needs. So it's very reasonable here what we state here. It's very reasonable. Of course, you have no need that isn't fulfilled already. Of course you don't. But are you, in fact, waiting long enough to actually feel that in your gut? Like, yes, it is all right. Yes, I take this. I love this. I bring this. I receive this as a total gift for myself. Yes, let the world say whatever it does. Let it do whatever I let it do. I don't pay attention to it, like paying attention to it. I'm not buying it. I'm literally not investing in this world, in this position, in this, all this that I perceive and make real by confirming it. But letting it go, the investment is gone. So then my consciousness becomes open and free to receive the glory of God or the grace of God. But only then. It's as simple as that. It's very simple. But there's still, if your mind is so-called all over the place and still not sure about it, about what is given or what is yours and what is your position in it, or afraid to lose what you have, afraid to give up where you're holding on to, then you cannot experience God. Literally, you don't want to experience God. So here, there's a lot going on in that sense. Now you see, and this was also part of the meditation, it's like, now you accept this, realizing that you're purified. You don't have to purify yourself. You cannot purify yourself. So that is taken care of. You let go of ideas that you have, but you cannot purify yourself. Now when I realize that, realizing is feeling that something happens here. I'm set free of my own ideas about what is going on, and I leave that for what it is, and I open my consciousness for something else. Then something can happen, and that will transform lives. It is not just that we're human beings knowing some spiritual truths. No, it is like you literally come into the demonstration of this. You come to demonstrate this. You are going to be the witness that this is working better than you think or thought. And it's working really well. So there are miracles happening. There's literally, like this week, a couple of times, it's like spontaneous remissions of people that so-called had cancer and now suddenly there's nothing to be found anymore. Like this is happening too. Why? Because this is what we do. This is recognizing, no, there's no such thing as sickness. No, that was a big mistake. That was just another temptation, that's all. Now that is changed in an instant. You don't have, that doesn't need to take long. It's like, no, when it is recognized, when it is in fact imparted, it immediately reconfigures everything. So that works so much better than you think. So our coming together, you could say, our coming together in this meeting, when you are watching this, has such an incredible healing power. Literally, it sets the world free of disease. More and more and more is happening, and it's expanding, and it's increasing in frequency and in intensity, because you are accepting this for yourself. That's why. Now that can occur because you have accepted this for yourself. So that's amazing. That's so incredible to share this. This Christ, which I have now consciously permitted to enter and express itself, this now is the substance of my life, the substance of my body, the law of my life. I live, yet not I. The Spirit of God that dwells in me, it lives my life. It is my flesh, as well as my bread. It is my resurrection. It restores the lost years of the locust. This Christ, which I now consciously permitted to enter and express itself, this now is the substance of my life, the substance of my body, the law of my life. I live, yet not I. The Spirit of God that dwells in me, it lives my life. So yeah, these are famous references, classical references of Job, like I, not I. And this, of course, expression, I think it was John who said this. It's not I that liveth my life. So this you come to realize, and that's a bit what we did in the beginning with the meditation too. So this meditation was packed already with all that we're going to express here too. It's like it is emptied, emptied as being a human being. Emptied. And that emptied sounds like scary, who knows, in your ears. It might sound scary, but it isn't meant to be scary. It's like you start to see it for what it is. Look at what it is. Look at what you're doing. Look at what you're believing. Look at where you have invested in. And are you happy with your investments, or are you willing to let them go and come to a new realization of yourself as the Christ, as the new, say, the new substance, the new body, the new life, the new bread, the new wine? I am the way. It's like that's literally the title of this series, but it's also that what is happening in you that you start to recognize. So everything else falls away. You start to, that goes also better than you think. Like, because it's not really of your own doing altogether. No, it is by grace that this is occurring. So that means also the laws of time are not really influencing it. It is given to you. Suddenly you see, oh wow, I really, it was so important to me a moment ago, and now I really don't care about it anymore. Or it's so good for me to be still. I never had a great time like this being still. Or however it's going to show itself. So that's the beauty of this, what is occurring. So this impersonalization and nothingization is literally, nothingizing can be seen then as the empty shell that is a human being. Like the empty shell, it has nothing because it thinks it's separate from God, and that cannot be. So what is it then? If you really take a look at that, what is a human being? Like an empty shell, always wanting something, because it can never be complete in how it sees itself. So the healing that takes place by recognizing that in yourself and admitting to it and allowing a change in your consciousness to occur, the change of like, no, I don't need that in my consciousness. I'm not buying it. I'm not investing it. I don't pay attention to that any longer. And there's no sacrifice to be made. I can just let this go. I can see this for what it is, and it disappears. So there's, in the end, like there's not much left in that sense. Like there's no world left by doing that. But there's a realization that will never leave you, your life eternal, that cannot be touched by anything. So that's your certainty that is with you here and forever, and has always been with you. So this and more, Joel is going to share too in becoming servants of God. Now we're going to listen to this tape, to 527A, I think it is. And so let's check that out. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
In speaking to you, you must recognize, of course, that I'm speaking in a far different way than would be the case if I were giving a lecture or teaching a class. In other words, we have to acknowledge to begin with that we have a very special relationship with each other. A teacher, a practitioner, a tape group leader of the infinite way has a very special relationship with the teacher, with the workers at headquarters, with any of our teachers or lecturers in any part of the world. And they must all feel this, otherwise they cannot adequately serve. In other words, in the years of our relationship, you have witnessed that there is no one greater than another. There is no one standing above another. There is no one looking down upon another. That a spiritual relationship actually reveals the bond that exists between all men, all women, everywhere, and therefore sets forth the only real equality there is. You read a great deal in the press these days about equality because of the racial disturbances and because of, in some countries, titles and those that have no titles. And you would think actually that all men are equal. Of course, all men are not equal. All men may have been created equal, but some of them chose to take advantage of the opportunities that society gave them for education, art, culture. Others decided to play the game in a different way. You can hardly call these equal. Some races have been held without education and opportunity. They also could not be termed equal. They are equal in potentiality, and they're equal in the sight of God, and they should be equal, and probably they would be equal if there was more love thy neighbor as thyself in the world. But actually, equality isn't something that a governmental decree can give anyone. Equality isn't anything that society can bestow on anyone. Equality is something that we can earn and deserve. Nevertheless, the moment we get into the universe of spirit, there is an equality of a different nature. We are equal then as children of God, as heirs of God, joint heirs. But you see, that equality can only take place upon recognition. If I recognize the statement, call no man on earth your father, but God is my father, then naturally I must accept that this is a universal relationship, and therefore that God is your father. And therefore I accept equality on that basis, that we are brothers and sisters in God. Now, that does not mean that we are all equal in our activities, because there are thousands of students of the infinite way to whom I would not wish to entrust teaching work or healing work or tape group work. And the question has been asked, well, am I not equal? Not in my eyes, no. Oh, you're equal in potentiality, but you haven't yet arrived at the state of consciousness that would equip you for this position. We may all be equal, but there are lots of people that I wouldn't want to be my banker or my lawyer, in spite of our equality in other directions. Now, in the infinite way, we do not encourage students to seek to be teachers or practitioners or tape group leaders. We encourage, rather, that the student devote their time to developing their spiritual consciousness. until the call comes, until an opportunity comes for rightful service. And then, consciousness having been established, the rest fulfills itself. Now, on this very subject, I wish to show you an important point. That which calls us to a spiritual service performs the service through us, so that there is never any responsibility on our shoulders. There is never a task given to us that is beyond our means, or beyond our capacity, or beyond our ability, because that which has called us likewise serves. To illustrate that very graphically, I can assure you that every year of the past 17 years, it has cost more money to maintain the activity of the infinite way than I ever dreamed of owning. And therefore, one might have said at the beginning, well, then you can't undertake this work. You are not financially equipped or supplied. But I did undertake the work without script or person, without taking thought. Why? Because I did not enter this work of my own free will and accord. I was called to it. And I have to accept the fact that that which called me would maintain, sustain, prosper, and so it has been. Now, everything that has been necessary for the activity of the infinite way, publishing houses, foreign publishing houses, translations, everything has appeared as the need arose. There has never been any seeking of any of these things. They have all come right to our doorstep. And the answer is that always, my function has been to be still and remember that no man could have invented the principles of the infinite way. They must have been an unfoldment, an activity of the divine consciousness. And therefore, the consciousness which is aiming them at human consciousness in this age, that consciousness establishes them. Now here's an important point, because it involves impersonalization, which is one of our greatest principles. Supposing I had believed that God was giving me these principles of the infinite way for my benefit, to heal me, or to enrich me, or to make me a spiritual something or other. Do you see how I would have lost the entire message and the mission of the infinite way? It was only because I recognized from the beginning that God doesn't give any great messages to anybody for themselves, any more than God gave Buddha or Jesus messages, or Paul, for their benefit. No, when we receive a message, then we are but the instruments or messengers carrying it, and the message must be meant for all consciousness. Well, it is in the same way. When you individually receive some measure of enlightenment, I hope you will never feel that God has done this for you. Because be assured, it isn't that way. It has been given to you that through you it may reach the world. It may start with just the world of your own family, It may start with the world of a few neighbors. It may start with the world of a few who may be led to you for healing or teaching or tapes. The size of the world doesn't matter. The first world that was led to me was a family of father, mother, and son. That was my first class. So, the important point is this. You must individually understand that whatever measure of spiritual grace has been given to you has not been given to you for your aggrandizement, or that you may be set aside as a spiritual poobah, but actually that it has been granted to you to make of you a servant of the Most High. Far better to be a servant in the household of the Lord than it is to be a great master out in the world. And therefore, every spiritual light that you receive, every spiritual grace that you receive, look upon it as that which is to make of you a better servant, a better server, a better messenger. In the same way, one of the things that is very noticeable in our activities is that as students begin to heal and adequately teach, that their income, their personal income, becomes abundant. Well, the same way, a tremendous mistake could be made, and one could feel that God is making them rich or abundant. That's not true. That's not true. This added things that are coming is also part of the spiritual fruitage and part of the tools with which we serve. We receive money and we spend money. We are not receiving all of this money for our personal wealth. We are receiving it really as a part of our ministry. And so it goes back into the ministry. I realize I'm saying this poorly, but at least I am trying to convey the idea that in your spiritual studies and meditations you are going to receive God's grace. You are going to receive it either as a healing gift, a teaching gift. You're going to receive it as additional supply, additional health. But remember this, it isn't being given to you for you. It is being given to you that you may be a better servant, a more adequate servant in the household of the Lord. Then you will be able to realize at all times no demand is ever made upon me personally. Every demand that is made upon me is a demand upon the Christ. In other words, it is really a demand upon that which has given me the message. And therefore, it is fulfilled through me. Never by me, always through me. As you realize this, you will never have occasion to be disturbed by the question, can I meet this? Now, it doesn't mean always that you are going to quickly meet every call for help that comes to you, whether for physical, mental, moral, or financial help. It doesn't mean that at all, because you are not the only person involved. There is also the one asking for help. And there are times and there are circumstances under which they do not respond quickly or fully. And this has nothing to do with you or your ability. It has to do with their own unfoldment, because we are dealing primarily with the subject of consciousness. We are not dealing with just changing a sick body into a healthy one. We are not dealing with just turning an unemployed person into an employed one. We are not dealing with just turning a sick person into a well one. We are dealing with consciousness. And therefore, the help that we give is meant primarily to lift our students and patients into higher consciousness so that these things may be added unto them. Well, now, sometimes they themselves prevent the block. I received a letter in my mail today from someone from whom I've never heard before, but they have read some Infinite Way books and said that I have written a lot about supply, and will I lend them $500? Well, now you can see that if my treatment doesn't readily bring them supply, you can see why. Their idea of supply isn't God realization, it's $500. And so it is that somebody else occasionally will write that they're not interested right now in learning about truth, just getting well so they'll have the health to learn about it afterwards. So do not always judge of your spiritual development by whether or not your patients are immediately getting their sense of demonstration met. Because their sense of demonstration and ours may be two different things. Silver and gold have I none, such as I have give I unto thee. And then some of them say, oh, but it's silver and gold I'm interested in. The point that you are to watch is this. Do not judge of your spiritual progress by any material sign, because you can be misled. Do not judge by any material sign. Then what are we to judge by? Well, why judge? Why judge at all? Why be concerned even? As long as we are living according to our highest standard of our spiritual awareness, studying to the highest of our capacity, meditating to the highest of our capacity, can we do any more than that? Of course we cannot. Therefore, there is no way to hurry our progress. The only thing that should disturb us, if we have to acknowledge, well, I must admit I am not doing the best that I'm capable of, or I am wasting time in things that represent a waste, then, of course, we have to make an adjustment. But the progress, try not to judge of that. I can tell you definitely that there is no way to judge of one's progress. You may today have a complete feeling of frustration, barrenness, insufficiency, and tomorrow be lifted right up to cloud 9. You have no idea of what lies ahead of you an hour from now, or a day from now, or a month from now. You have no idea of your progress, and it is for this reason, that just as in nature, we can be watching our crops, trees, flower bushes in the spring and see not a sign of a bud or a leaf, and then decide that we are not doing well at all. And it may be just tomorrow that those buds begin to appear, those leaves, those blossoms. And then we realize that there is no way of watching progress until it happens. When it happens, we've seen the progress. Before that, we had no way of knowing what was what. And so it is with us. I have witnessed in my own experience that I could seem to be 1,000,000 miles away from spiritual demonstration, and then, really in the twinkling of an eye, the entire picture changes. I have witnessed with healings what appeared to me to be no progress whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, again, in the twinkling of an eye, the change took place. I have no way of understanding it. That's why in none of my books do I explain it. I have no way of understanding it. I merely know that it is a fact that if I am living up to my highest concept of spiritual principles, that undoubtedly there is an inner progress going on. Probably the reason that I can't feel progress is that I can't feel spiritual. I never have felt spiritual. I don't know what it's like to feel spiritual. I can only feel that I am myself. If that's spiritual, make the best of it. If it isn't, I'll still have to make the best of it. But I don't know what it is to feel spiritual. Therefore, I have no way of knowing whether I'm more spiritual one day than another day, because I didn't feel any less or more yesterday. I do have periods of feeling barren. That's quite a different thing. That feeling of barrenness is always a prelude to a greater unfoldment. I never have a greater unfoldment of principles without there first being a period of barrenness. And sometimes a period of barrenness when I wish that God would take the whole blooming message of the infinite way and give it to somebody else. But as long as I can be patient through that, and sometimes it really requires more Emma's being patient than me, because I can get very uppity and say, I'm going to bed, and just hide my head in the pillows, and that's that. What else is there to do? I can't fight City Hall. And so the only thing for me to do is just give up and wait. And when I do, as a rule, something very fine happens. It happened on this trip that I had one of those periods when I felt sorry for Emma, because I really was ugly and in no mood for anything or anybody, and finally just did decide to go to bed. And I stayed in bed all afternoon and evening, and then in the middle of the night I had the vision. Then I woke her up and told her about it, and that made up to her. But try not to be too elated when these great spiritual revelations come. Rejoice, yes, rejoice, but don't be too elated, because the feeling isn't going to last. There's going to be a settling back into normalcy, and then eventually there's going to be barrenness again, and you'll have to fight the whole thing all over again. So learn to accept that, and learn to accept the fact that the reason for it is that I of my own self am nothing. It's only by the grace of God that these messages come, and therefore I must learn to accept them in the way that I can accept them, whatever that way is. But I emphasize that above all things, remember that every spiritual grace that is given to you is not for you. It is only that you may be a better servant. It is for all of human consciousness. That is why this grace is given to us. Every bit of grace you receive benefits someone else. It may have an effect upon someone in your family, someone in your friendship circle, business circle, eventually, students. But you will find that this world will be better off for every spiritual unfoldment that you have, in some way or other. Therefore, do not be in too much of a hurry to serve. Give yourself as much as possible to the developing of your own consciousness, and then, when the opportunity and the call for service comes, then remember that that which called you serves through you. Then you'll be impersonalizing. Then you'll never be caught in a position where you haven't a message or where you haven't the right word of God or the right treatment. Never, never, because you will know that the demand that is being made upon you is really being made upon that which called you. And then you will settle back into your meditation and you'll receive whatever it is that is necessary. Now, this brings us to a very important principle in the message of the infinite way. I have told you that the Bible has led more people astray than it has ever benefited. The faith that people have in the Bible has been more harmful to them than good. And the reason is that it has never been explained to them that the Bible promises are not for them, and that the Bible promises are not going to come true for them. And so, century after century, people buy the Bible and read the Bible and read these promises and rely on them, and then wonder why nothing ever happens. Why doesn't it come true that I will never leave thee nor forsake thee? Why doesn't it come true that none of these evils will come nigh thy dwelling place? Why doesn't it come true that God is the healer? Why doesn't it come true that all the land that you can see from this mountaintop is given unto you? Like for most people, not even an acre or a half acre of ground has been given unto them. And yet they've been promised all that you can see from the top of a mountain. Why are these Bible promises not fulfilled? Well, you are the only people in the world today who have the answer. Nobody but Infinite Way students has the answer to that, although it's in the Bible. That the natural man receiveth not the things of God. That the natural man is not under the law of God, neither indeed can be. Ah, you see, that's been hidden. That's been hidden. None of the spiritual promises was ever meant for a man whose breath is in his nostrils. Seek ye for a man whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? The Master says, my kingdom is not of this world. And so you see that we have gone for dozens of centuries of poverty-stricken people, diseased people, enslaved people, and none of the Bible promises have come to pass. And lots of these peoples were Christian peoples who had Christian Bible promises, and lots were Hebrews who had the promises of Hebrews. Can you imagine the feeling of the Hebrews in Germany when they were marching to their death and perhaps repeating within themselves, none of these evils will come nigh thy dwelling place? And wondering, well, what did that passage of Scripture mean? It sure is coming nigh our dwelling place, too nigh. Well, oh yes, and the Christian missionaries carried the Bible to Japan And can you imagine the Japanese Christians when they felt that atomic bomb coming on them and then remembered the promises, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee? Do you not see that you must individually awaken to this message of the infinite way so that you actually do see why there is an infinite way in this generation, why the time has come for, at least for you, to awaken to the fact that you are never going to receive God's grace as long as you are a man whose breath is in his nostril. You are not going to receive God's blessings as long as you are living by the law of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You are not going to receive God's blessings as long as you are holding your enemies in condemnation. Until you become children of God, meaning thereby praying for your enemies, forgiving 70 times 7, loving your neighbor as yourself, fulfilling, in other words, the message and the mission of Christ Jesus, until you are literally living Christianity, or Buddhism, they're all the same. Until you are living that, you do not become children of God.
All right. Thank you, Joel, for bringing that to us. So that was something that I really wanted to let play for a moment, because he was really entering into a new subject, so to speak, and couldn't finish it. So that's really lovely. And you see, that fits in perfectly well with the meditation that we did. It's like emptying yourself, the emptying, thinking that you're a human being, like letting your investment go. And so that's for that reason. That's for that reason. All right, so I'm going to play a song, and I hope to see you next week in the next episode of I Am the Way. And it's going to be another incredible journey. So thank you for everything, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.